Welcome back to online class. The viewers, you know that this situation is so tough. In spite of this situation, we will overcome this. So you will try to overcome this situation. But our daily necessary activities are going on. So you are engaged in your duties, that means readings, and at home you are engaged in your reading and writings. Dear learners, today I would like to take a class about a story. So you know that it's a very much tough topic about a story. So how can we write down a story? At first you think that what the element of stories. So today I will tell you about that. How can we solve this problem? How can we write a fine story? So dear learners, let's go with me. A story. So at first we can find out something, that means we call that the elements of a story in which we can form a good story. So dear learners, what's the element? 5 elements. You know that 5 elements are needed to write down a fine story. So what's the first element and how can we explain it practically? So at first, problem. If you want to fruitful story, at that time at first you can find out some problems. What's the problems? In a first or introduce sentences in a story. So what is problem? That means the first element, number 1, and the second element, setting. That means in setting you can find out some causes or reasons of the story. After third, number 3, characters. After that, number 4, plot or actions. Action or plot. Number 5. Number 5, solution. Dear learners, these 5 elements you will find out at first. After that, you will try to writing a story. So, if we think that a story, that means in class 6, 7 or 8, maybe you have learned some stories. In the easiest story, in an easiest story, that's like 2 friends and a bear. 2 friends and a bear. Dear learners, in the question paper, in some particular sentences are given, but how are they given? That means once upon a time, 2 friends were going to a feast by crossing a jungle. In the way of suddenly they were or they felt afraid. On or the first friend came down. Dear learners, in this way, in your question paper, the story will be set up. So, once upon a time, two friends were going to a feast by crossing a jungle. At that time, or in the way of they are going, dash. So, at first you think that what's the problem? What's the problem will be created at that time? So, you can find out that. After that, you can find out what was happened. In this situation, you can think other thing that in which kind of tense is used. You know that most of the time we can say that the ancient incident or an incident travel. So you can write down in past form because in ancient time incident would be happened. So here we can see that where. So you can think at first in which verb, in which tense are used. So there we can write down in the way they were gossiping or at the time of their going they were gossiping or they saw because it's a past form. So we can write down they saw a bear. Clear? They saw a bear. Suddenly they saw a bear. In this way you can find out. After that, number 2, you can set in which region or how can it happen? How could it happen? So, number region 2 or element 2. And number 3, character. Character means in the body of the story, you can find out some main sentences. In the main sentences, the main part of the story, that is the character. And in solution, after that last portion, solution means the ending sentences. If you write down the ending sentences, at that time you can use how can you solve that problem all over the gist things. That means the summarization of the story. After that, you can write down a moral. If you find out the moral of the sentence or moral of the story, at that time you can write down the moral. So dear learners, at first you can write down in this way, such as a greedy dog. So that is the title. It's the title of a story. That means you can give a title of a story. That it is needed to you. Because if you write down a correct story, if you want to be good marks in the exam paper, at that time you can find out a clear title. After that, you will start your story. And the moral, that means you can write down a proper moral. And at the concluding session, you can finish the story. So dear learners, think that the elements of a story, how can we arrange the story, how can we write down the story. Dear learners, okay, thank you today. Today I will finish my class, so best of your luck.